BetStamp wants to ensure you've maximized your ROI. Line shopping for the best odds matters, and that is why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sports books. Thankfully, there has never been a better time to get signed up, and they are here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. Using their link, signupexpert.com-TAS, you can get access to all the sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique features. Most importantly, this page automatically connects you to the top promotions at each book, allowing you to start line shopping with an enhanced.
All right, this is Todd Atkins, and I'm back with Miguel Adorati, and we're doing another MMA Conspiracy Hour, but we're going to focus on what a lot of people are talking about, this Conor McGregor interview, along with Jake Gyllenhaal, where he was, spasming and, looked totally out of sorts. And, before we do, as always, I want to thank our sponsors of the Fight and Bet Stamp, and I encourage everybody to subscribe to our channel and support our shows. And Miguel, I just want to give you opportunity to kind of open here and talk about, this latest Conor McGregor interview and kind of your initial thoughts to it.
Yeah, what's wrong with society? What is wrong with the MMA media? I'm reading things like, "Oh, I saw the interview with Conor. I hope he's okay." It's concerning, things like that. Let's just say it, and we've been saying it for a little while. We said it a few podcasts ago. We're looking at a drug addict here. That's what that is. Amazing circumstantial evidence. Without seeing him put his nose to a mirror or take a hit on a pipe or whatever, that's about as close as circumstantial evidence as you're ever going to see of a person who's high. And when you take the gravitas of, he made $100 million with his Floyd Mayweather fight. He makes millions per fight afterwards since. His whiskey company did very well, and he's making millions, and that's been valued at hundreds of millions of dollars as well. I'm not saying he's going to make $100 million off this movie, but if he's getting points on the amount of people that are going to see it, he's going to make millions of dollars off this movie. It's not like he signed a contract of $50,000 to appear, and that's all he's going to get, and people are going to go see the movie. And not to mention the fact is,
I don't think they can go see it. It just came out on, I think, Amazon Prime. I don't even think
okay,
it went to
but
theaters.
Amazon Prime still.
I watched it, by the way, just to say I watched
but that's it. And why'd you watch it? Because of Jake Gyllenhaal?
No,
No, you watch it because of Conor McGregor. So if he's smart, every view that you get on Amazon Prime or whatever, he's getting a piece of.
Yeah.
He's monetizing off of this in a way that me and you don't make that kind of money.
It's like a pretty good bad movie.
Yeah, he's a remakes and stuff like that, but he got in there, and I tell you that he's probably one of the main attractions in it, more than Jake Gyllenhaal even.
Yeah, I thought Jake Gyllenhaal was totally goofy in the movie, honestly. I don't know why they had him in there.
Okay, but my point is
terrible.
My point is that he understands. We all hear, even Dana White, he's a great businessman, this, that, the other stuff. As a businessman, do the fucking cocaine after the interview, not before. You understand what I'm saying? There's a line he crossed. There's an ego thing of saying, I don't care, or nobody's going to notice, or, it doesn't matter. Nobody can say anything to me. What was his reasoning for putting his nose to the mirror, so to speak, before the interview? Because that's not like, he was partying the day before. That's looks like recent use. And I do have a little bit of an understanding on some of that. So he was partying and said, yeah, I'm going to do this interview. He'd never appeared in public that way before. Now, I've been waiting for the excuse for him to say, I took an antihistamine and had a bad reaction or whatever the deal is. We'll see what he says or if he ever addresses it. But again, circumstantial evidence that points to the use of hard drugs. And we suggested that was looking like a problem in some of his other appearances. And I'm just talking because he was starting to look bloated, puffy. Alcohol and drugs combined lead to, a tired look. And again, he's not 25 anymore. He's in his late 30s. He's past 35.
Even his interview with Errol Houani in his own bar was kind of bizarre. He was just babbling on and on. Yeah.
But you can blame it on the atmosphere there, and you could say he was drunk. And again, drinking is more legal and more accepted socially, and that kind of thing. I think it's a problem.
Yeah.
But this interview shows pretty clearly circumstantial evidence, strong evidence that this goes beyond just having a couple of drinks. Or even a couple too many drinks, Yeah. And we've seen this sort of thing before. You remember Chuck Liddell, falling asleep and passing out on the morning shows? So, that's what happens the day after. You're not tweaking like that the day after. So he made a decision, however he justified in his head, to use drugs shortly before an interview where he was going on with his co-star and a Hollywood star for 10 years. This interview, it's not like he was interviewed by me and you, where nobody was going to see it kind of thing. And then, I'm just kidding around and stuff, but he was going to do a major interview and took the step of saying, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Nobody will notice, whatever justification used in his head. And still, one of the things that we've been pointing out is there's nobody around him who can stop him. There's nobody there, not a business partner, not a manager, not a spouse, nobody who could say, Conor, not stop doing drugs. Forget about that issue. How about let's not do drugs before you make a public appearance where you're going to be making money off of this stuff and you could look foolish. Nobody around him. And, we got spoken to, or in the comments of our podcast where we spent a lot of time talking about his drug and alcohol use, somebody called out and added steroids to it, and I give that person credit. That's a good read. Steroids also affect the ego and things like that, but this wasn't steroids used either. This was hard drugs. Again, what's he going to say? Well, I took some steroids and I had a bad reaction. I'm still taking a treatment for my leg that I broke 3 years ago. This is why Conor, with nobody calling him out at the level I am, where, and there's so many problems to this, because let's say it's cocaine. Cocaine, we had John Jones in an interview say to Daniel Cormier, I did cocaine the weekend before fighting you and I still beat you. And it apparently appeared in one of his tests and things, but cocaine gets out of your system almost immediately in 2 or 3 days, 72 hours type of thing. So yeah, obviously he's going to think, yeah, I'll be ready to fight. We've gotten rid of that nasty tendency that people had to collect piss at random. We don't have to worry about that anymore. So yeah, I can do whatever I want. And that's the thing with this guy and his ego, is that people kowtow to him. And again, he's a volatile enough personality that he'll pick up a hand truck and throw it at a bus. Those were bad signs a long time ago about the personality that you're dealing with. So why won't his wife sit him down at home? Is she afraid to get a smack in the head? Or at least, fuck off, and he goes off to go party and show her that he does what he wants. It's been pretty public that he's been unfaithful to her and she stuck by him kind of thing. He runs her over. He doesn't have a spouse who's going to be the wake-up call. He doesn't have a trainer that he respects enough who's going to be the wake-up call. He doesn't have a promoter, even Dana White. Dana White, I saw an interview that was published only 6 hours ago. Maybe they're taking old information that Dana said. I don't know the context of Dana's exact quote in terms of time frame, but Dana said, Conor's a solid guy. He's a great businessman, one of the best business people I've ever dealt with. I wonder if Dana feels that way right now, because that was not a good business move to appear in public looking like that. And Dana, in all of this, we wouldn't be listed as Dana's biggest fans either. But if Dana, I like to think, like we mentioned in a recent podcast that about the lawsuit, that I was surprised because over the years Dana has taken care of people, and that they didn't make much of an effort to put that out in public. It would have served them well, that Dana took care of this guy and this, and that stuff only came out from third parties telling stories. And Dana's always kind of been like, yeah, I do things like that, but I don't like publicity. Now, Dana, as a caring person, might take the greatest business partner he's ever found in the MMA game and sit him down and go, man, you're fucked up. You're doing drugs way too much. And you're going to have to clean up before you do this. But not even Dana seems to have the balls to face down Conor McGregor. He needs an intervention. But this would have been on the TV show. Remember the TV show Intervention, where, they get like Dana's there, his wife, maybe his wife with his kids, because that's powerful. His trainers, a couple of teachers that taught him in high school, a couple of his ex-opponents from Cage Warriors in Europe when he was a no one as a fighter. Everybody in the room saying, Conor, you're a better person than this. You got to overcome this, because this is what could take you down. Nothing else has seemed to be able to take you down. But this is what could take you down, because it seems to me from what we're seeing that Conor would be the TV show where the guy says F you to everybody in the room and walks out, because nobody's breaking through to this guy.
No. That would do big ratings if the scene you just laid out.
Hey, that's kind of what the TV show was like. Yeah. And I've done my share of drinking and my share of partying and things, to the point where, people around me told me it was a problem. And at some point, you don't listen. At some point, you've got to come to the realization yourself that people are telling you the truth. And then there is a listening. It's like, okay, they are saying something valuable. Conor's not at the point where he's listening in anything. And things, when you're a guy that the stars are crossed for you like that, how everything he's done so far in the last 10 years of his career was come up smelling like roses. How do you not think you're invincible? And he thinks he's invincible at this point. And again, he's messing with an opponent that is undefeated. It's undefeated. Either you come to a conclusion that you stop at some point for your own good, or you overdo it and you go down, and eventually you could actually even wind up in the grave. But he's playing with an undefeated opponent. And drug and alcohol addiction is up there with, cancer. At the end of the day, it's a death sentence kind of thing. And it could be in many ways, just on virtue of that interview. Would you hire him for another movie?
No, I don't know how the Hollywood acts. They may not even care.
But as we pointed out at the beginning too, he is a big draw for this movie. So maybe somebody's saying, well, I like to draw in the money better. I'm willing to ignore that. But for the next movie, this stuff has a progression to it. He might do a couple of interviews. He might show up for the filming that way. How'd you like your movie that you thought you were going to monetize be delayed 30 days because you got to shoot it a couple of times because your star is on the fritz? How many times has that happened in Hollywood? You got to be a mega star for people to put up with that. And Conor hasn't broken into the Hollywood megastardom yet. He's got his foot in the door and he's done well, but he took a really big step in being publicly seen the way he was seen that way. Because, like I said, it's amazingly strong circumstantial evidence. People who have been around that type of partying or maybe even parties themselves understand exactly what it was that they were seeing there. And he hasn't even bothered to make an excuse or anything like that. But really bad sign. And again, everything on the ego that we've been talking about, we're talking about a massive, massive ego. And at some point, these are problems of the ego. He doesn't listen to anybody. Nobody can talk. He doesn't accept consequences. He doesn't believe any consequences are coming his way that he can't handle. So yeah, I think we're watching a potential train wreck here. I'm not saying, he has enough money that he might not even lose all his money. But here's the thing is if he never fights again and never goes to Hollywood again, then he slowly becomes a less and less big media star. Slowly, his whiskey company doesn't have as much money coming in. Is he going to be able to compete on an ongoing basis 20 years from now when he's not a star with big companies pushing whiskey that always have publicity and media and things like that? He's not at that level yet. As nice as Proper 12 is, you can go to any country in the world almost, any Western country for sure, and see Jack Daniels t-shirts, number 12. Right? Does it say number 10 or number 12?
12,
Jack Daniels has a number on there too.
Oh, no, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, he's Proper 12, but Jack
I don't
Daniels has
drink,
a number. So. It's a Jack Daniels. It's a black T-shirt with the white label, and it has a number on it. It's escaping me. I drank it and looked at it enough times, but I don't want to get the number wrong. But and that shirt is so iconic that there are millions of variations of it. People using the name and putting their logo on it and variations of it because Proper 12 is not at that level yet. He made a couple of $100 million in the first couple of years that it's there. If that starts to go down, those other companies, they make that money steady for the last 50 years. So he's not on that level. So at some point, I think the whiskey is probably his best income right now. But even that, as his star fades, so he may never fight again. He may never be in a Hollywood movie again with that misstep. And then that will affect his whiskey sales because he will not be in the public eye anymore. Even if his income becomes zero, he has enough money put away that he will never need. He could party to the death till he's 80 and still have money probably.
Yeah.
But it's still not going to be something that, I'm not a McGregor fan. Never have been. I rooted for Dustin Poirier the first time, for Eddie Alvarez, for everybody to derail that train. But I think it's sad. I'd hate to see him go down this way. It was a better story when he was leading the way as an MMA guy that broke through to the big time money and was somebody that people could, I'm not even a fan of the emulating, but somebody that people could see some of the business moves he made, getting rights, getting it free of his UFC contract to do things, emulate that and take the game to a whole new level. He did that. But this step here, puts that iconic status more in jeopardy because he can't, he's now put the party ahead of all of that. To appear in an interview like that is serious. You never saw John Jones like that. Mike Tyson is an athlete that achieved levels that Conor's achieved. Mike Tyson, one of the quotes that sticks most to me is Mike Tyson made $350 million twice in his career and lost it. And he has documented and been very honest. Now he's older now, and he's, combating it. He smokes pot still. He has a pot company and things like that. But pot's a whole different thing. You know, he talks about his hard drug use and his drinking and things like that with regret, with and having left it behind. Because definitely it contributed to his loss of the $350 million on two separate occasions that he made. So you're talking about a situation where, Conor may never have been beaten, and he lost in the fight, with Poirier. He lost in the fight, but at the end of the day, that was on his record, not at the box office or in the bank. He didn't lose. And again, with the way he handles things in terms of the media back then and those types of things, sitting in the ring with his foot and calling for the rematch, and even things like after he won the fight, I apologize to absolutely nobody. People talk over him in a media interview, and he's like, "Who the f is that?" He had a way of turning things. You know what? Do you ever remember an interview where he ever looked unimpressive? Maybe he was overdoing it in some of them and being like, too bombastic and stuff. And maybe he was recycling his act of making the faces and doing stuff like that. But none of that was what we saw in that interview. None of that was what we saw here. What we saw here was an addict that they put a camera in front of, and he was showing all the signs of it.
You have to wonder, like, what they saw on set, or if stuff will come out about, because if he was willing to do that before an interview, who knows what he was doing during the filming.
Yeah, when they film that, again, they have a set. The stars, and he was one of the stars of the movie. I'm sure, because of his income and things like that. That, like I said, I'm sure he didn't say I'll take Actors Guild minimum for this. I'm sure he was treated like a star, which means he had a house or at least a trailer, private area for himself, and those areas have been used for decades by Hollywood stars to do their thing. And they may have had to reshoot a scene or two because he had overdone it. Or maybe he was smart enough to say, no, I'm not filming right now. The party went off the rails, and I'm going to do this for today. Yeah, maybe they saw it before. Jake Gyllenhaal's reaction to me was of concern and also a little bit of surprise, also embarrassment. Like I think he'd rather not have been there in that interview. Nobody's talking about anything else in that interview except that. And Jake, has an ego of his own, likes his attention too. There was nothing in his reaction that was positive also. It was concern, it was worrisome. And once again, not even the co-star of the movie that they're going to both bank on is strong enough to go say to him, hey, I need you cleaned up for this scene, or I need you cleaned up for this interview, or don't do that before this interview, or be careful, or whatever. There's no intervention coming for Conor. There's nobody on the horizon who can break through to him that we can see and get through to. He's got to find it himself. Now, maybe he comes out in a week and says, I'm checking into rehab. That interview was the last straw. I've watched it. I'm embarrassed. But until I see it, I won't believe that that's happening, because
that would be a shocking response.
Yeah, that would be that to me. It's the only appropriate response right now that could show people that you still have somebody there that's worthy of emulating or admiring, because he just turned himself from a guy that people like, great. Now, if you're still partying out there and you're on, you're out there doing your thing and things like that, yeah, maybe you're like, I give a fuck. I don't give a fuck either, whatever that deal is. But again, as far as the general public, the public that's paying him because most of those people that party and that would condone that type of thing, that's not where his money's coming from. His money was coming from being a crossover star. And he just did something very unadmirable. So the only way that somebody should say, okay, now he's going to tackle it that way and come out and say, I embarrassed myself. I'm checking into rehab. There have been stars in the past. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but
Charlie Sheen.
that have gone into rehab publicly. Jerry Garcia
Charlie
was
Sheen.
one.
Remember Charlie Sheen went through that embarrassing phase?
Yeah, with the tiger blood and stuff. I haven't seen him be too clean after that, but I don't know. I didn't follow that. But Jerry Garcia is a good example. He's a guy that towards the end he had passed out driving his car on heroin and was stopped at a green light just asleep in the front wheel of his car when he got arrested. And even he died in rehab because his body couldn't take it anymore. But even he checked himself into rehab. You've got stars that were as crazy kind of, as Conor's image is. Like Conor likes that image of being the crazy guy too, Steve-O is another guy that's addressed, the guy from Jackass is addressed, and I'm not even coming up with great examples off the top of my head. But that's kind of what it would take for Conor to be impressive again after that. Not even if he fights again, what are we going to get in the fight? What can you hope? Especially with a drug, if it's cocaine, and it could, I guess there's so many other substances, whatever it is, but if it's cocaine, it could be out of his system in a couple of days. So the testing and things like that, that's not the issue here. He could get in the ring again, but if he gets in the ring, anything close to that, or with that in his recent past and not something he's put firmly behind him physically and mentally, because if you're a drug addict and you're going to take 3 months off to do a training camp for a fight, you still got to go home at night and sit there. You go back to ancient times, you had John L. Sullivan, the last bare knuckle boxing world champion, who was a known alcoholic. And he went and he respected his trainer, a guy named Muldoon. Muldoon's home in upstate New York is now the Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame. And it's in that home that he tied down John L. Sullivan and made him be sober as he prepared for his last bare knuckle fight. There's a famous story of how Sullivan went crazy one day late at night when you're alone. He just couldn't handle the stress anymore. And you got to be free of that stress, And he took off and went to the bar. And Muldoon followed him. And Muldoon was also a physical guy. He was a wrestler and a guy that, could impose his will one way or another. And he grabbed John L. Sullivan and took him out of the bar and walked him back. That's what Conor's missing. Somebody strong enough one way or another. I think the best candidate for it is Dana. But I also think that Dana's a big enough icon and star and has his own things going on that I don't know if he wants to be bothered. This is not an easy job I'm presenting to you to clean up Conor McGregor, but somebody needs to do it because leaving Conor to do it himself, it's going the other direction.
Yeah, do you think they'll want to put him back in the cage this year after this? I know they're talking about it before this interview came out. They were saying, Conor's back,
Everything about the modern company, the Endeavor and Dana that we've talked about in the last year between me and you points at all they care about is money. Now we're really about to find that out. Because if they do put him in the ring and there hasn't been some type of cleaning up that should be noticeable, right? Because if you've been that way and now your ego enjoys the deflation that comes with realizing that you've crossed the line and that you're getting beat by drugs and alcohol, he'll be different in interviews. It would just be natural. I don't know anybody who would be that great of an actor. And again, so we're going to find out if they say, nah, we're going to cut him.
They won't do that.
Should they?
No,
How do
no.
you send how do you send the message that needs to be sent here? I'm just asking.
Maybe they come out publicly and say, "Look, we're having him go to rehab or whatever." If they come out publicly and do that,
yeah, then that's the intervention of Dana and those people that that doesn't cut.
They're not going to cut him. They won't do it.
They don't come out in public and say we're sending him to rehab without having had a closed door conversation with him and having him agree to go to rehab.
Right.
And again, there's been a saying in the last couple of decades that's developed, and that's having FU money. That's having enough money in the bank that nobody can tell you what to do because you don't have to take their money and you'll still live a great life. Conor's got the FU money, enough FU money that he can tell Endeavor in a closed door situation where Endeavor is asking him to go to rehab, he can tell them FU. So yeah, they got to grab him, put him in a room, have that intervention that we're talking about. I present to you, it would be better with a camera there and his wife and kids, his dogs, his mom, his loved ones, everybody there going, Conor, you're out of control.
Jason,
but maybe it's just Dana and the matchmakers and what's the name of the CEO, Hunter, and what's the name of the big guy at Endeavor? I don't want to get his name wrong.
Ron Emanuel.
Yeah, Emanuel. That's
Ari Emanuel. I'm sorry, Ari Emanuel.
Yeah, maybe all those guys in the room. Dana Conor, walks in and sees them and goes, "Oh shit!" And they go, "Conor, you're not fighting again until you do rehab." And we're going to announce that you're doing rehab because that was embarrassing. No, that should be a strong enough message that most people would at least take a step back and look and probably wind up in rehab. The reason the stupid TV show I've mentioned was so successful is because most of the guys, at least, or guys and gals, but most of the addicts at least tried it. At the end, you would get the story of like, it's been 3 years and they're clean, or, they went back out on the street and stuff like that. You never know. It becomes a day-to-day thing after that where, how Conor handles it. But it starts with that first admission of being like, I've got a problem.
I was going to touch on something. I heard Jason Whitlock say today, he was talking about something else, but it kind of, what you mentioned, he was saying there's no such thing as FU money. He said it's F me money, as in eventually, a lot of the time, that's what it does. It drags you into places you don't want to be, because you have.
I think
he said there's no such thing as that.
It's definitely very insightful of him to say that, especially when you look at Conor's total situation. Because, like, for example, if Hollywood came to Conor and said, Conor, for your next movie, we want you to wear a dress, like, the Cat Williams stuff and things that. Yeah. Conor could say F you to him, and that would be a good execution of FU money. I don't need your money. You can't make me do something I don't want to do. That's the original definition of it. When you cross over to F me money, it's like that. Like he could be throwing away what's made him because he already has enough money socked in there, and he will be something different 5 years down the line. He will be something different 5 years down the line if he keeps partying and doing this sort of thing. He'll be a 40-year-old man, still partying like a 20-year-old.
Yeah, even the thing in Miami, like he had no wherewithal to know that people were watching him when he went and grabbed that girl's hand and dragged her back to wherever he was going. Like there's all these people around. He didn't have the common sense to know I'm a famous person. Maybe if I do this, all these common people.
We don't know how the ego works exactly at those levels. Maybe he was aware of it. Maybe he likes the buzz of people being shocked.
He didn't care. You're right.
Yeah, and he didn't care. Yeah. Either way, these are not good signs, And they, again, go back to not paying consequences. Like, he got away with How different would it be if he had served a 30-day sentence for the altercation with Khabib, throwing a bus, destruction of property, a melee there, or did some of the little underlings he came with, would they still be following him if they had to do a 30-day sentence in New York and couldn't fly back to Ireland? 30 days in New York jail, you come back to Ireland, you may not have a job anymore. And I present to you, Conor ain't footing the bill for many of those guys. Not like they're living on his estate. He built homes for all of them and stuff like that. No, they're fanboys and followers. And Conor's whole has gotten away with stuff like that for a long time, and that builds the ego. So we're looking at something that's been growing. It's not getting better. You think, okay, he had hurt his leg, and so he went off the rails for a little bit, and he's enjoying his money. This goes beyond enjoying making that money. Again, this was, even in the worst of circumstances, this was a situation where a lot of addicts, and many Hollywood guys do this, would have said, I'll do the coke after the interview.
Yeah.
And Conor couldn't even control that in himself. So yeah, I laugh at what we've seen as a reaction. Conor has not made a statement that I can see. And most people's reaction is, oh, that was worrisome. Oh, yeah, wow, what was that? Maybe they're talking like me in private. They should be, it's that obvious.
I see a lot of people covering it, so I don't see people ducking it necessarily. I see a lot of people.
Yeah, they're covering it, and they're tiptoeing around what it is that we're actually looking at here. And we're looking at a guy that is not in control of all of his faculties anymore. And the 98% reason for that is substance abuse. Which is illegal, and this and that and the other thing. And again, there's no scramble to help him. There's no call for anything like that. And that's why, he's finding it. He's probably lonely, surrounded by people and still lonely. He's not alone. He's lonely.
I wonder what his trainers do. I mean, if they ever tried to intervene behind the scenes. But in a way, like you're saying, it might even be better to come out and publicly say, no, we're not going to train him.
Yeah.
That would have a bigger impact than trying to talk to him behind the scenes and getting shut down.
Yeah.
And then training him anyway after, like they always do.
You've got the famous example, and it's going on right now almost at the same time. You almost wonder if they've partied together, and that's Tyson Fury and Conor McGregor.
And Ryan Garcia to some extent even. Ryan Garcia.
Yeah, but Ryan's an American, so Ryan is doing it in his scene, but Tyson and Conor have a lot more in common. And England's a lot smaller, and Ireland's a lot smaller. And, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they party together. But at the same time, with Tyson, his father's a much stronger figure than anybody in Conor's life that we can see. And Frank Warren, his trainer, has come out and said, I'm tired of the big oaf. He's partying and he's not doing what he has to do. I'm not promoting him anymore. And then he turns around, like you said, and promotes him. But at least in public, they're trying to send a message. There's nobody sending that message. Dana, like I said, an article published 6 hours ago, maybe they're using older words, but an article about Dana, he's the greatest businessman I've ever dealt with in the MMA game.
Yeah.
Where's Dana's balls to say, Conor, man, that was a mess. I wonder if Sean Strickland had messed up that way and done an interview where, on top of all the nonsense he sometimes says, that some of it's nonsense, some of it's not, but he's a guy whose ego's gotten him in love with his own voice. He's got an opinion on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if he crossed the line, on top of giving an opinion that was maybe out of place, he did it while showing active signs of abuse of drugs. How long he would last on the UFC roster.
Oh, Dana'd be all over him publicly and everywhere else.
So yeah, Conor is still getting a card, get out of jail free card. That's what he's earned in all of this. And he's, instead of, like I said, instead of saying after this Roadhouse movie where he's going to be the guy who benefited the most from it, even if it goes box office big time and Jake makes a lot of money and stuff like that. Jake was already a certain level of star. Conor was going to be like a person who could say, the whiskey industry, I tackled it. The movie industry, I tackled it. On, after that, and he could have perhaps appeared in movies again. Perhaps turn that into a thing where he could say, like The Rock. Like I think at certain points in the last few years, and these things change and stuff, but The Rock was the single highest paid actor in Hollywood. Instead of pursuing that, where he could have actually, like The Rock didn't go, but he's back in wrestling now, but that's for certain other reasons. And he's a chairman on of the board with Endeavor now, or whatever the company's called now. And he's been bought aboard, and that's why he's making TV appearances again. And also, they're going to get, he's an older man now at this point. They're going to try to get some of the last ring time that they can get out of a guy. But Conor could have walked away and say, the reason I'm walking away is because I've got something else that's bigger. And he may have just trashed that with this interview. So yeah, like I don't believe that that the media has done a good job of covering this. I think that it needs to be, call a spade a spade. This was exactly what everybody, in their, oh, he's high, everybody in back rooms, the reaction there, that should have been the media public reaction of, how dare he? What does he think, we're stupid? Yeah, he probably does.
Yeah, it is it is unfortunate, because I don't think, like you said, there's no one who's ever publicly kind of clashed with him on his behavior. Nobody.
Yeah, like if he was cheating on his wife, and his wife finally said, that's the last straw, I'm going to divorce you, and she winds up with half the money and he goes down that way, I'm on his wife's side. I root against him. But this is beyond.
They're not even married, so she's not his wife. She's his common law wife, because how long they've lived together. I guess that's a law in Ireland.
She's the mother of his kids.
Yeah, that's a law in Ireland. Like, she's his common law wife. That's what
she could still, and I don't know if that take half is an American thing either. I don't know that she's in what the law says she's entitled to over there with, if she left him or whatever. But the point is even that Conor being the wrong, I'm on her side, but I don't want booze and alcohol to beat anybody.
Right.
That's what makes this kind of sad. It's like, he's certainly not going to listen to me, but I've laid it out in this podcast in no uncertain terms that he is apparently getting his ass kicked.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how other people try to tackle this, or if Dana White comes out and says, he always says something about everybody else.
Yeah, here's the number one
even
thing.
John Jones, he said things about. So
when let's see if at this point they could tell you he's going to fight in July or November or whatever. Let's see if he makes it to the ring. They could sign the contract. They could do the publicity. They could put him on posters. They could start the media machine. And he could go off the rails again and throw it all away and still not give an F, because he's got the fuck me money, as you say.
Yeah. Yeah, Miguel, like I said, your insight's always great on this stuff, and I think the way we've kind of addressed is different from what I've seen other people, because they, like you said, they kind of try to tiptoe around this because they want.
And we've been addressing this for a little while now. We brought this up as an issue with him many podcasts ago. And, again, some people added the steroids, which I appreciate that there is that aspect of. But that also almost says to me, that he had that built-in excuse to the steroids, so people are almost bringing down how volatile this is. And here it just reared its ugly head again in a bigger scale in public. So yeah, we were sort of right all along in that he's beginning to show the signs of you know an inner struggle that he's going to lose.
Yeah. Well, Miguel, as always, at the end of these episodes, I like to let you talk about the dog rescue you've been working with in Costa Rica.
Business as usual, same old stuff. Mingo, our dog that they got the CAT scans and the X-rays and stuff over the weekend done, and he is undergoing an operation. It's about $1,100 for the operation. He has 3 discs in his back. A couple of them are not that are messed up. A couple of them are okay, but there's one that requires an operation right away, or he's going to be paralyzed. So I think I sent you a link and some pictures and things. Maybe, he was under the knife today. So when we get off here, I'll probably go to bed. But in the morning, I'm going to be trying to look up and see how he did, the results and things like that. And this is one of the things that happens. Mingo's been in the shelter years. He's a dog that nobody's chosen to adopt. And then it falls out, he still needs to eat every day. He still needs to be taken care of. Ashley probably spent about $1,000 getting him to the point where the CAT scan, and where they say, okay, here comes, he's going to need an operation. The operation is $1,000. So with all that money invested already, she made the choice to, keep it going and invest another $1,000 and try to get him fixed so that he can enjoy his life for a few more years. He's not a ancient dog or anything like that. He's a good, honest, lovely dog that is living his life in a shelter, unfortunately, and that somebody abandoned somewhere and left on the street. So at least there are people that care for him. There's some money coming in. If anybody wants to contribute, like I said, I sent Todd here. I've been calling you Scott since the Scott Frozen thing.
Yeah.
But I sent Todd some links and things where you could send the money directly to Ashley. Like I said, I don't really have a personal interest in getting money or anything like that. If it comes to me, I'll make sure it goes there. Like I always do and always have. But yeah, what's important now is just taking care of that dog. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, for everyone, as always, we appreciate everybody watching this. Be sure to subscribe and like the videos that we do. We appreciate your support. Put your comments if you want to ask Miguel some questions, or if you want to ask me anything. We always appreciate your support. And check out next episode. Be on the lookout. Take care.
Live to Fight is the type of company that Dana killed. It's a homegrown. It's a guy that just does good work and puts it out there. And if you can support him, you really should, because he's precisely a guy who can't. His banners may not be able to hang on to UFC because he hasn't been able to pay them $100,000 to get his stuff out there. That's the corporate stuff that we're talking about now with the UFC. That they've made everything at that level where it's all about money for them. And Live to Fight is a dude that does good work, makes you a great banner, and doesn't have $100,000 to get on the UFC and stuff, and deserves support. So any fighter out there, anybody out there, owner of a gym or anything like that that listens to us, God bless you and thank you very much for your support. And extend that to Live to Fight, because he's one of us. Those guys are one of us.